All right, everybody, welcome to the Abundance to Give podcast. Today I have Henish on. Henish. Excuse me, I'm going to butcher this thing.
No, it rhymes with Henish.
So Henish.
Yeah, Henish.
And you're with, is it Calhoun Co. or what is it?
Yeah, that's my company name that I've got. It's a DBA for my real estate team, but then my construction company is also called Calhoun Co. Construction.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that mostly, because I know you do ADUs, flipping houses. Do you do a bunch of new construction too?
Mostly.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly now. I mean, it's taken some time to evolve and get to that level where clients are like, yeah, please build my custom home. So now we're doing a bunch of custom homes and stuff like that.
Do you like the custom home business?
It's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, especially when...
Because it's not a track home. It's not a spec home. It's custom built for a third-party end user.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. So they usually give us plans. It's a homeowner that says, I've got this old house.
Yep.
Can you remodel it and turn it into a big new house?
Okay.
And so basically we remodel old houses for the most part. Because
are the plans already done, or will you go work with the third parties, get it through, and then...
Both, yeah. Sometimes we'll get clients at step one, like, hey, we heard we need to call you to get something built.
Gotcha.
And then we'll typically refer it out to architects we work with, depending on who we think will be a best fit for them. Then they interview. And we'll stay involved because they might say, hey, we've got a $1.5 million budget, and make sure that what they're designing will fit within that budget.
Sure.
So we can kind of give them feedback on how tall ceilings will affect that, or La Cantina doors versus like regular sliders, or... certain material choices will affect their budgets. So.
Fleetwood doors versus this.
Correct, yeah. So all of that adds up. And so, we don't want the designer or the architect to design a $2.5 million building when we're well, I thought your budget was $1.5 million.
Well, and you know how the game works. So what I love is you're a licensed general contractor.
Yeah.
I'm also a licensed GC, but we don't do third party. So the only reason I ever got my license was to do our own stuff.
Yep.
And help kind of control that process and some costs and stuff like that. Where are you from originally?
India is where my family's from. I was born there, but I grew up in Michigan since I was 2 years old.
We're in India.
Kerala.
So I've been to, it was Mumbai, is it Mumbai? Yep. And then Agra, and then New Delhi.
Yep.
So, and I was there many, many years ago, almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's like one of the most eclectic countries.
Yep.
I've ever been to in my entire life.
It's not for a beginner tourist.
No. I tell people when I went there, they're like, how was India? I said, well, look, imagine this for a minute. You have a country about half the size, maybe a little larger than half the size of the U.S., but with 1.4 billion people. So their upper class, like their rich class, is the entire size of the United States.
Yeah.
Over 300 million people make up the upper class in India.
Yep.
And then you have the caste system and all that stuff. But it's wild. It's one of the most unbelievable countries I've ever been to.
I've been there for visits, and then actually in 2006 I got to live in Delhi for over a year for business.
Okay.
And I ran an outsourcing operation there.
Wow.
And so then I got to travel around India quite a bit. My family's, kind of shaped like a triangle. So my family's from this area, the very southern tip, basically. Yeah. But all the businesses and, there's so many big cities that, I was in Delhi for business. But I got to go to Mumbai and Goa and through the mountains and Agra and all those places. And so see a lot of it.
It's one of the most incredible countries because of just I tell people there's a thing called personal space that does not exist in India.
No.
Because there's just people everywhere.
Yeah.
And I thought I was going to die like 3 times in a rickshaw.
Yeah.
Well, but it's unbelievable.
At least you had the guts to ride in a rickshaw, which is fun.
I mean, I'll never forget it. We got in the rickshaw and we're driving down the streets, and I thought he was going to slow down as we were approaching the intersection.
No.
Oh, no.
Found a gap.
Just
found a gap.
Full on.
Full tilt.
And I'm sitting there going, we're going to die. We are completely going to die. Yeah. And it's a whole...
Yeah, that's a standard.
It's controlled chaos.
If you don't think you're going to die once an hour, like the driver's not driving hard enough.
Yeah, I was blown away. I mean... But I tell people, I said, it's an incredible country. Go, experience it. But yeah, you're right. It is not for the beginner tourist.
It's not for a beginner tourist. And I there's an analogy. They say that describing India is like 4 blind men describing an elephant. So one's at the tail. I'm like, India is like, a paintbrush, and it's got bristles, and another person will grab a leg and like, no, India is like a tree trunk. It's an elephant's like a tree trunk.
Yeah.
And the other person's like, no, that's wrong. An elephant's like a wall. It's just a big wall. Another one grabs the tusk and it's like, no way. It's like a sharp, sword here.
Yeah. It is an incredibly beautiful country that just people need to experience if they get a chance to travel and stuff. So okay.
Yeah. Go to Europe first, then.
Yes. No, it's not for the first timers.
No.
I mean, you got to be ready to go.
You can stay in nice hotels. There's beautiful hotels that are $100 a night.
Yeah.
That you could stay at, and you're comfortable. You'll get to get safe food.
Yeah.
And then, if people are like, I want to see the slums. I'm like, yeah, do that for an hour.
Yeah.
But then there's plenty of other nice stuff to see.
Yeah. I mean, we can even talk about that because it's a wild country experience I had there. So, but where did you originally start? So walk me through that. Grew up in Michigan.
Yeah.
How did San Diego happen?
Yep. My first job out of college was in the subprime mortgage world in 2002.
Okay.
So they had me do underwriting for about a year, and then I in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay.
In Cincinnati for about 9 months. Moved to Chicago downtown for the next 3 years, and I was in sales. So my clients were loan officers, and I was the subprime bank peddling 80/20 stated mortgages. Did well at that.
We could have the greatest conversation about this because you went through the financial crisis.
Yeah.
You remember it heavily. There was an incredible, it's called House of Cards, came out by CNBC about 2-3 years after the financial crisis. And I don't know if you recall, you can go YouTube it, I think, probably at this point. They narrowed the whole pathway down to the financial crisis of subprime loans to a Lebanese immigrant that was selling Mercedes at Fletcher Jones Mercedes in Newport Beach.
Okay.
And this was back in the early days of it. He saw all these loan officers coming in, buying these $100,000 Mercedes, going, what in the world are you guys doing for a living?
Yeah.
And these little 25-year-old kids,
Yep.
Buying these expensive cars, and they're all saying, we're loan officers, right? Countrywide, and all that stuff that went down. And so this was all kind of when it was A-prime paper. And then, so he got into it, but obviously, given that he was newer and didn't have experience, he started a company called Quick Loan Funding. And the only way he could get to be able to fund loans was in the subprime space, like B and C paper.
Yep.
And the only people that would even consider buying it in the beginning was Bank of America out of Wall Street. And that's how it started. Like literally, Quick Loan Funding started selling their packed paper to Bank of America in Wall Street. And then they saw how much money they were making. So then all the other lenders started jumping on the bandwagon.
Yep.
And then now it wasn't A paper, now it was B and C paper.
Yep.
And then, as you know, they packaged it all together in one big lump sum, put, A++ on it, and started packaging it around the world. And then, long story short, we all know how that party ended.
I was not smart enough to understand exactly.
I wish I would have been.
I should do like short sell or something. Yeah, I didn't know, but I was smart enough to be like, after a few years of it, it was confusing to me how all of my borrowers could buy the same type of condo that I afforded in Chicago.
Yeah,
making good money.
Yeah,
and I'm like, we're stating it. I don't get it.
Yeah, they could just show up. Oh, I make $200,000 a day.
Yeah, I'm a high end janitor and I make $200,000. I was like, I don't get this. I don't get this exactly, but it seems suspicious. I'm going to get out of this business.
Interesting.
And so I was going to hand off all my accounts, sold all my stuff, and booked a one-way trip to Central America to start traveling.
Interesting. What year was that?
2005.
Okay, so that was the ramp up.
Yeah, correct. So I figured I'd be leaving around 2006 because around 2005.
So you didn't plan this. Was this an accident, or you just felt like instinctually that
it just seemed suspicious? Yeah, it just seemed weird. And I was like, I'd saved up some money. I was young and single.
Okay.
And so I wanted to travel.
So you traveled Central America?
Nope, I didn't, because before I did that, and I was in the process of exiting, the president convinced me to go to India to run that outsourcing operation. He's like, I heard you want to travel.
The president of the company?
Correct.
Okay.
He's like, we don't want to lose you. You want to do this job. And I'm like, that sounds great. So I went, because I'm ethnically from there, but I hadn't spent enough time. So it was a cool way I still went to Central America for a few weeks, came back, sold all my stuff, and flew to India in 2006.
Wow. And how many years did you spend in India?
13 months, just over a year. Yeah. And so so I was running that outsourcing, but I got to learn a lot about servicing.
Yeah.
We're doing loan servicing, payoffs, escrow, accounting, HR, title work, loan stacking, basically a lot of data entry work. Very little phone calls.
And that was all 2005, 6, 7?
6, 7.
Okay.
2006 and 7.
So now you come back to the United States after that?
I was traveling a lot to San Diego because we have a lot of our servicing here for that company that I worked for.
Okay.
And so that's when I started to really like San Diego.
I was about to say, that's when you started falling in love, didn't you?
For sure. And so I was like, I need to move back to San Diego. So they got me to San Diego, and my next job was running the REO department because sure enough,
oh my God,
as my old boss said, all these loans are getting farted through the back end now because they're crap loans. And so,
wow, this is so cool because I will never forget this. So it was April 8th, 2008. And my dad walks in my office because at that time I started coming out of college in the title insurance industry. because I said I didn't want to go work for family. My dad was building and developing them, but I wanted to kind of like, be my own man and show that I could like do something on my own.
Yeah.
So I got into title insurance first, 2002 to 2004-ish, maybe early 5, and then went back to school for 2 years, and then came out of that with my graduate degree, but then started to go work with family, like right as the financial crisis was starting to warm up.
Mm-hmm.
April 8th, 2008, 8:35 in the morning, like a lot of 8s.
Yep.
He walks in my office, closes the door, sits down, and he says, the banks are shutting down our loans. We had a lot of construction loans. We were literally under construction of a lot of stuff. And I said, well, they can't do that.
You would think.
Yeah, they can't do that. And he says, I told them the same thing. I get it. But they said, sue us. Because they knew everybody was going.
Yeah.
And so they said, we're going to cut our losses, and here we go. But that started the violent chaos, right? And so after helping him, because his company's collapsed amongst all of that, he was in the build and sell game, mostly in Southern Riverside, where all the chaos kind of erupted originally.
Yeah, for sure.
But then I had the chance, as you know, with real estate, you're either on the positive side or negative side. So you were in the REO. And so I had the chance to become an asset manager.
Oh, there you go.
For a third-party asset management company, Atlas REO, here in San Diego.
Yeah.
So I was handling 300-400 assets at a time, some in San Diego, mostly on the East Coast and then Northwest. But we had operations for Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, EMC, Chase, Countrywide, Bank of America. I mean, all of them.
I remember that. Yeah.
And it was the wildest shit I've seen in a long time.
For sure.
You realize how irrational the banks are.
Yeah.
Going through that. But I dealt with a lot of the up-and-coming REO agents and brokerages. I mean, Kyle Whistle, right? I mean, that's how I met Kyle.
Yeah.
So we started giving him deals here in San Diego. And then I met a handful in Riverside and East Coast. And, man, just that was a shit show.
It was incredible. So I was actually the manager of the department. So asset managers worked for me.
Okay.
But I got to see all the hairy deals that we had. And I remember it was interesting because in places like Detroit, we were giving houses to the fire department to burn down a practice.
I mean, because they're worth less than...
And it was a liability to have.
Yeah.
They only did that for a while. And then at a certain point, we were paying $5,000 to $15,000 per house for different investors to buy them. But we would literally pay them to take the house.
Wow.
So we could take it off of our name because, they were flooding. There'd be water costs and utility costs that were more expensive. And we couldn't even give them away.
I know. I mean...
But I was also at a time where in San Diego, you could buy an REO house for $150,000.
I know. $150,000,
$200,000.
I mean, and that's when we started buying stuff. But I wish, as everybody does, I wish we would have bought more.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to think how that's going to work out. I just don't know. And so, I did some consulting.
What an incredible time.
It was a bizarre thing.
And it's nice that you went through it because there's a lot of young people in the industry now, 14, 15 years later, that have not gone through that type of experience.
For sure.
And so they don't know how to migrate through tough markets.
Yeah.
And they kind of like tuck the tail, when things get a little tough.
Yep, for sure.
So interesting. So that's 2008, going through that. So walk me through that a little bit more.
Yeah, so that's how I moved here in 2007. After that department was kind of good, that company got bought by a private equity firm, merged with Caliber. I made it through a few rounds of layoffs, and maybe by the 4th or 5th round, they're like, okay.
And that was Caliber Home Loans?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they merged our company with Caliber. I was with a company called Accredited.
Okay.
And so they merged. They dumped all the executives, made it through a few rounds, and they finally are like, all right, you're done too. I was like, okay, that's fair. But so I had a consulting gig lined up, and so I was working for Bank of America primarily as their consultant for short sales, REO, foreclosed homes, loss admit. And so
what would you consult on?
Yeah, their processes. They wanted to find out what was wrong with their processes to make sure they were doing it. Because I had done a really good job at our department bringing in Equator, Rio Trans.
Yeah.
For that.
Oh my gosh, you're like making me flashbacks.
So
I mean, I had like triple screen Equator, man.
Exactly.
Like boom, 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 boom. Like I just see all the properties everywhere. Right?
For sure. So I was right there with their development crew, and I wrote up most of those workflows with them.
Okay.
So I was kind of like their
would you say you're an operations logistical guy?
I'm a deal junkie sales guy.
Okay.
I just did those jobs, and I didn't love sitting at a desk all day.
Okay. So you like being out and about.
Correct.
In the front end.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So I like to do that.
But it sounds like you have an ability to.
I can do that. I can underwrite and I can sit at a desk and plug numbers.
Okay, so you can do logistics and operations and workflows. And
I just don't prefer it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, just don't prefer it. And so I like the deal junkie stuff. So I did the consulting for a while, which is also a grind. I was flying to Dallas every week. And it sounds glamorous when you're young, but eventually I knew I wanted family and kids and stuff. And so it was like, this isn't going to be long-term sustainable. I can't imagine a family being okay with me gone 4 or 5 days a week.
Yeah. No. I mean, that's only going to last so long.
So, yeah. So eventually got into flipping. You know, in 2013, I started I connected with a guy that was a flipper and had done some stuff, but quickly found out that our ethics didn't match. He was okay with like lying and lying and cheating people. Yeah. Basically.
Like not finishing houses right, doing things maybe the wrong way.
There was a lot of that, but it was also like he would like take advantage of people in tough situations and tell them that he wasn't buying the house and then have them sign a grant deed, you know.
Gotcha.
And so I was like, I think I could do the same job and just tell people the truth.
Sure.
And so that's what I did.
I mean, it comes around. You know, that's the thing I don't understand is karma's a bitch.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? And you can do things for a while, but karma will find you.
For sure. I mean,
it always has. It always will. And eventually it'll nip you. And, integrity is a big thing. It's a core value of mine.
Well, we had this conversation last night. I was at dinner with some other entrepreneurs, and they're like, how do you balance, you know, working on your business and making it successful and making a lot of money versus spending time with your family? And I was like, I personally don't know, but I've heard from a lot of entrepreneurs and read stories that they all wish they spent more time with their family. Sure. Because being rich in relationship quality is a lot more valuable than having a big bank account.
Sure. Yep.
And so, the entrepreneurs I talked to, like, absolutely, we've heard that too. And so it made it pretty clear, spend more time with your kids.
Yeah, and it's always that tough balance because you want to provide and give a lifestyle that you want people to have, and that does require hard work.
Correct.
And so everybody's seeking that quote-unquote financial freedom.
Yep.
What would you say in your mind, how would you define success?
It changes. It's always like a moving target, right? It's always like, okay, cool. Can I have enough passive income from my real estate where I don't have to put in the hours and I can just take off a week, a month, 2 months at a time? That would be great. I think that'd be a goal of mine, and I haven't got there yet. But I also want to be able to spend so much time with my kids that I can do the pickups and drop-offs, or take Monday off and go fishing with them because he likes to fish, or, and take my kids camping and simple stuff where we get to hang out and play. And even this morning, I was talking to another dad. He's like, yeah, absolutely. Spending that time with your kids when they're young so you can instill your values.
Yep.
And what's important is so important right now because they're less likely to take that from you when they're in teenager or college. Or
well, sure. They're going to have that window of time, as you say, when they get to that middle-aged teenager, call it 11, 13, 12, 13 and up.
Where they know everything more.
Right.
They know everything.
And then it takes time for them to come back around.
For sure.
I try and think myself, I mean, yeah, I started to be like, oh, I'm the smartest guy in the room. My parents know nothing. And then you realize when you get maybe after college, coming back in your mid-20s, you're like, oh, actually, you know what?
They do have some stuff.
My parents were all right.
Yeah, they did okay. Yeah, for sure. So there's that. So I think that's important for me to have a strong relationship with my family and my kids, my wife, and not squander that, and play with them when they're kids because they're so much fun.
Yeah.
And so...
How old are your kids?
5, 7, and 9.
Okay, so mine are 8 and 10.
Yeah.
So you're kind of right in that cool window now where it becomes, I think, fun for any parent, but
Correct.
a dad.
Yeah.
Where you can, throw them around a little bit, rough house, have some fun. They talk back, sometimes in a good way.
Yeah.
But it is a lot more fun when they get more to the toddler and kind of mini adult age.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're done wiping butts, and now it's just let's have some fun.
Yeah.
The kids,
are they into sports, soccer, or things like that yet?
Yeah, they've done everything. Right now they're in jiu-jitsu 3 times a week. They just finished a flag football season. They're starting basketball season. My oldest one fishes and sails every weekend.
Okay.
But they've been through all the sports, the soccer, the golf.
And then what part of town are you in?
Pacific Beach.
Pacific Beach. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're in the beach areas. Are they into soccer or mostly other things?
They've played seasons of it, but I just didn't want to be that soccer parent in Riverside all weekend long.
I know.
And so
I know. Especially if you get into the club.
For sure.
Which we're starting to, and I'm like, oh.
It's a lot. So I don't mind, a couple hours here and there, but I just be like, oh, yeah, you're 8 o'clock game in Riverside, and then a 12 o'clock game, and then a 4 o'clock game. I'm like, I got to spend all day in a lawn chair.
Yeah.
That's tough.
I hear you.
So...
Maybe I need to start putting the kids in other things.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the club stuff is tough. And I've heard from parents that have been athletes or have kids that are athletes, like, you don't necessarily have to put them in when they're super young. Kids can pick up sports 14, 15, 20 years old and become a good athlete.
Yes. Yeah, I think that it's just you have that the peer pressure per se.
For sure.
Because all the other parents and the kids are starting so young in these sports now.
Yeah.
That by the time they get to a certain age, if they're not like in it, I mean, they're not in it.
Right.
And so that pressure is definitely there, especially if they want to have the thought of maybe even doing it in a minor or professional.
For sure.
manner.
Yeah. So now we have sports at the rec league and the jiu-jitsu places like 2 blocks from our house. So we're almost at the age where the kids can almost walk to their sports by themselves because it's only a couple blocks away from our house. So that's a nice benefit of having a walkable community where we live. And we still are at the practices, but we can drop them off and walk home, just like that.
So now you're construction, obviously ADUs and flipping houses.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
have a real estate team too.
Okay.
I still have a real estate team. We've got 15 agents on my team or so and adding 1 or 2 a month.
Okay. Where do you see kind of the flipping business in San Diego? Have you seen a lot of competitors leave? And where do you see that market right now?
I have had bad luck buying properties on the market or from wholesalers.
Okay. So
unless I'm getting it direct to seller
Yep.
or from an agent that understands that there needs to be a decent spread to make some money, it's just too risky.
Yeah.
It's just no spread. You can't buy a house for $800 and sell it for $1 million and make any money.
No, especially, I mean, in today's market, if you're going to reno it, you're putting at least 100 into it, depending on what's going on.
At least 100 a foot.
Yeah.
So it's a 1,200 square foot house. It might be 120,000 you're putting into it, plus some holding costs, and there's no spread at that point. And so it's just like I can't do it just to move money.
Right.
It's got to have some profit in it.
Yeah.
So.
And are you financing your deals still? Okay.
Hard money.
Where are you seeing that financing at right now?
I mean, I can get up to 90% of purchase and 100% of rehab.
Okay.
I only have to come in with 10%,
10%.
And the holding costs.
Yeah.
And then now the last 2 projects I've bought.
And is that a 10% interest rate?
Yeah, roughly.
Okay.
10 and a half.
And then 2 points?
Usually 1 point.
Okay.
The big lender I was working with was at a half point, but I got a deal where it dragged on because the city pinged me for permits.
Oh.
Yeah, they just sat on their hands for about a year for permits.
Oh, so my goodness.
Points
You're just clicking interest, yeah.
Yeah, so, half point origination sounded great, but then they started charging me 4 points for the extra year.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so that was like, okay,
that's
got it.
Killing you pretty quick.
You're wounding me while I'm down on it.
Yeah, you're kicking me, and then you know what?
Right.
Do they roll an interest reserve for that, or do you pay that monthly on the interest?
I was paying monthly on that one.
Will they roll an interest reserve?
Yeah, so on another project where I'm building 8 units behind a house that we have in Rolando.
Yeah, more of a development deal.
Development deal, they give us all of our takeout, all of the construction, and 1 year of interest reserve.
Okay.
Because there was enough equity in the ARV.
Yeah, so they're looking at the ARV on the flip side.
Right.
Okay. Will they do that for just a normal flip?
I haven't seen that.
Okay. So they want the interest paid monthly.
Correct.
When you're building it in. Okay.
Yes.
So you have to kind of account for that in your equity.
Correct.
You're coming
Absolutely.
in.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to be able to float that for 4 or 6 months, whatever it's going to take.
Yeah, because typical turn time on a flip these days on say a normal $1 million house in San Diego, are you 6 months?
I budget 4. I can get it done in 2, and I'll give myself 2 months to sell it.
Okay. So you can turn a house in 2 months, huh?
Yeah.
So you have a good crew.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important.
Correct.
Especially with any supply chain and stuff you're doing, you got to move that. I mean,
correct.
Because as you know, time is money on that stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then on the ADUs, where do you see the ADU game right now? Because everybody's jumping into that, right?
Correct. Yeah.
San Diego's the place to do it.
Correct. Yeah. Absolutely. There's so I'm doing it myself, and then I've got a few others in the pipeline that make sense to do. I'm trying to be picky about which locations I'll do it at, because if you can't provide parking on site, I want the neighborhood to be able to bear it. And I feel like some people are developing a lot in neighborhoods that are already...
Yeah, they're packed. Streets are packed.
And if I have to park a few blocks away just to come visit, that's annoying midday.
Well, it's going to hurt you because you're seeing a lot of the, the complete community stuff that's been built with these mini high rises.
Correct.
Right. And I'm hearing it from some of the developer guys that built those things. In theory, in the beginning, it was a great idea. But then they're realizing, oh, shit. So like from a marketing perspective, people actually still want to be able to park.
Correct. Yeah.
And then they can't because we've given like 3 parking spaces for a 50-unit building.
Correct. Yeah. So just the cliche there is just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right.
And, if you want someone to pay $2,400 for a 400 square foot studio, guess what? They probably have a car.
Yeah, they're probably a higher degree professional.
Yeah, they need to go drive to UTC. They need to drive downtown. They need to drive to their pharma job in Torrey Hills or whatever it is.
Yeah.
there's no good bus routes. I make too much money to sit in a bus for 2 hours each way.
Right. And we're not urbanized enough yet. It's
No.
not New York City.
There's not enough
It's
public
not San
transit.
Fran or some of the bigger metros.
Right. So I think I've heard there's a lot of vacancy in those studios with no parking.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And so I'm trying to park up all my projects 1-to-1 as best as possible.
Okay.
So like the 33 unit I'm doing in Vista, we just sent in for second round of submittal for permits. We've got 34 parking spots in that building.
Where are you seeing, generally speaking, construction costs on a price per foot basis right now for new construction? And let's presume it's not an uber luxury.
Yeah.
Let's just say it's a decent house, San Diego.
I mean, at the very low side for just middle finishes or basic finishes, about $300 a foot.
Does that include just hard cost, or are you including some soft cost for architects?
Just the vertical costs.
Just the vertical.
Yeah. So
does that include any site costs for grading, or?
Yeah, depending on how much grading is needed. If it's a flat lot, that's included. But if it's something trickier, we need retaining walls.
Yep.
Or run utilities, then that adds up.
Okay.
Right-of-way work can be expensive.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Utilities, SDG&E, water line upgrades, things like that.
It's getting wild out there, like the costs and stuff. So
yeah, but you usually can figure that stuff out in advance, and so we know enough of that during our estimating phase where we can get that pretty drilled in.
Okay. Yeah, it's wild when I look at, because even we have a project we're finalizing. We're probably not going to build it. I think even though I kind of want to build it, my business partner wants to sell it. So, but it's a 20 unit that we entitled in La Mesa. Mm-hmm. That's a great project. It's got some site work though, because we have some walls and stuff that are there that are not cheap. And it's a podium project in a way, where it's got first floor concrete, 3 floors of wood above it. So it's interesting.
Even that should be around $300 a foot,
give or take. Yeah, for the vertical. Yeah, for the vertical, and then our site costs are a little more expensive, just given
retaining walls.
Yeah, retaining walls and some dirt. Although the dirt we can flip flop, because we can pull down a little bit and flip flop it to the other side,
compact it.
Yeah,
got it.
But it's interesting to see the construction. I always like to ask construction guys what they're seeing out there on the construction cost side.
We just connected with a new framing company that is now going to be having robots do our wall panels for us, built
on site,
off site, and then trucked on site, and then we can put it together in 75% less time for just the framing portion of
wood framing.
Correct, wood framing. But then they're also doing the waterproofing.
Okay,
on the outside, they'll do drywall up to except the bottom 12 inches, so we can run conduits when necessary.
Interesting.
And they'll even run the MEPs and stuff in there.
Like they'll do all that off-site and bring the walls on with drywall on it and all that shit.
Yeah.
And then how do you do the insulation?
Yeah, they'll insulate it as well.
Okay.
Yeah, everything. So depending on where it is. So we'll see. We're getting our first delivery on December 15th.
That is going to be a trip. You need to film that. I need to see that.
Well, yeah, they've got video of the robots making this stuff already. Okay. And it cuts our framing cost in half, which
that's huge.
We can pass on to our clients. So that $300 a foot goes to about $275 a foot.
Wow.
Our new projects we've got in the pipeline.
That's wild. I mean, if they can make that efficient and not have to do, you reduce your on-site framing and setup, right?
Correct. Yeah. So now, a 2-month framing job will take 2 weeks.
Wow.
Is the plan, because it's already done. It's already cut and put together. We just have to stand them up.
Interesting.
And so that'll be helpful.
And then how do you do with the joists and stuff? Is that all built on site?
Yeah, the joists, there's extra wood. So for example, we just had them bid out like a 3,400 square foot custom house that we're building.
Okay.
So they're like, yeah, we'll do a lot of the panels, but like the big beams and architectural beams, that's separate.
On site.
Yeah, that's on site. We're doing that.
Okay. Interesting.
So same with like trusses and stuff like that. We still have to put those in ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's get back to philanthropy, because abundance to give, like the whole podcast and the concept behind it, is interviewing successful entrepreneurs like yourself and getting a few layers deep on kind of where you came from, what you do, but more about, has giving back, helping others, doing philanthropic type stuff created abundance for you in your life? And then how? Because everybody knows when I talk to entrepreneurs like yourself, they say, yeah, giving back, helping others has brought about XYZ.
For sure.
And it always pays itself 10x.
Yep.
Share with me your story around that. Stuff you've done, passions you care about, stuff like that.
The last few years, I've been a board member of a women's health center.
Okay.
And so they're providing basically birth and pre and post birth care for women at a discount or free, depending on what they need.
Yeah.
So we get donations, and then we'll help women out with their childcare expenses especially if they're doing a non-hospital birth.
Okay.
So it's associated with a birth center where they have births in a comfortable setting with midwives or other help with doulas and stuff. And so that's been nice to be able to offer that, because a lot of people don't like the hospital setting for giving birth. And
do they do epidurals or no, or it's all just go for it?
Yeah.
Oh, God, I mean, I don't know what that's like, but I mean,
I don't either. But just from what I've heard, if you're prepared properly, you can make it a less uncomfortable experience.
Okay.
Versus if you're uncomfortable and scared and clenching, then you're then you're forcing the square through a round hole.
Square peg through a round hole.
And so, but if you're comfortable, then it kind of works well. So my wife's had 3 kids, all natural, with no epidurals.
Really?
And one was a home birth. We wanted the third one to be a home birth as well, but the midwife wisely was like, "Hey, you're having hypertension, you're getting high blood pressure. We should go to the hospital." So we wisely went there, but she still popped it out with no extra drugs.
That's unbelievable.
And she'll tell you, it's uncomfortable, but like she likes to be aware during it, because then she's like, you get that euphoria after it, because they throw that baby on you right away. She's like, "This is awesome."
Right.
And she's with it, versus like kind of in a stupor.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So, but animals have been doing it for millions of years.
No, I know.
And
so, they've been doing it without all the drugs.
Right. I mean, and oftentimes they just go by themselves, pop out a baby, and they're like, "I got a baby." And, so I think there's been a lot of media around scaring people into going to the hospital because it's the business.
Sure. Well, yeah. I mean, we all know, which is why I'm super interested to see what happens with, RFK going into the Human and Health and Services to see, what can be done. We all know we have a problem here in this country with the health epidemic.
Yeah.
And people getting sick.
Yeah.
And it's just a revolving door system.
Yep.
And there's a lot of powers that be that if you put any pressure against that, they're like, no. Like,
this is the way we do it.
Right. Well, it clearly has not worked out.
Right.
Because we have obesity at X, people are dying, sickness, length of age, it's going down for men. I mean, we see all these things happening, and it's only here in the U.S. I mean, you go anywhere around the world,
everyone else is getting healthy.
They're doing great, and they're doing better.
Yeah.
And then you look at the U.S., and we're supposed to be the most sophisticated first world country and blah, 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 healthcare system. But it's designed, unfortunately, between the processed food system and the hyper-processed this, and then you pump everybody in, and you get them into the hospital system, and you pump them full of meds. It's just one big revolving cycle of crap.
It's bizarre because we call it healthcare, but it should just be called sick care.
Yeah.
Because they only want to treat sick people. Like if you go into your doctor and say, "Hey," they're like, "What are you here for?" I was like, "I don't know, check me out."
Just want to be preventative.
Yeah, I don't know, check something, take my blood, whatever you want to do. Make sure I can live for the next 40 years, whatever it is. And they'll be like, "You want any prescriptions?" I'm like, "For what? Like, why are you just offering that?" But it's because they get paid. There's financial incentive behind writing the scripts. And so it's too bad that that's the case. And then the next thing you know, you're hooked on a drug that causes a side effect.
Yep.
Like, let's get you another drug that causes some. Okay, now you're on 6 different drugs.
Yep.
And the solution is not to take any of them.
Well, yeah, and there are holistic, organic ways to do it. I mean, I believe in
natural remedies.
Yeah, in combo, right? Because there are benefits to the drugs when they're needed and necessary. But there's if you're preventative, and we all know, it starts with diet,
of course.
But at the same time, the food supply system, which 20 years ago, 30 years ago, back in the 90s and early 90s, and it was good.
Yeah.
Right? And they were actually growing real wheat.
Yep.
And now, as you know, through Monsanto and some of these other mega companies, they're creating dwarf wheat. And they're hyper-processing all this food, right? And so on top of that, you just have pesticides and all this stuff crammed into all this food supply system.
Yeah.
And then you wonder, when you literally look at the correlation of sicknesses and diseases and all ADHD and all these other things in kids and people and all, there's a direct correlation between where all that spiked in our food supply and all the diseases and sickness coming in, and the obesity on top of that.
Absolutely.
I mean, you could literally look at a graph, and it's like pear pursuit all the way up. And then they're like, "Oh, there's no relationship." Come on.
Yeah, it's tough because we're always taught go to your doctor for care, but maybe some of these natural remedies and naturopaths and stuff can have some benefit. And their basics is that, hey, our food supply is bad. You need these supplements to offset the lack of nutrients that you would have got.
Or
if you had a healthy
hey, like, come on, companies. I mean, we understand you're here for profit. We get it. We're capitalists.
Yep.
But you have a responsibility of what's going on.
Correct.
And so the mindset's going to, I hope, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's enough power behind that to truly shift the direction we've gone.
Yep.
But it's getting really bad, and people are awakening to it because they're seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're seeing their parents get bad. They're seeing their kids obese and overweight. They're seeing the food supply system get worse. They're seeing the processes and the sickness and everything going on.
Yeah.
Right? Mental diseases, physical diseases, and they're just getting out of control.
Yeah.
And then now you can relate it directly to the food supply. First is the diet. Secondly is all the pump of drugs.
For sure.
So we'll see.
So that's not that's not ideal. Yeah, getting back to it. Yeah, so I've been doing that that healthcare for women charity for the last few years as a board member, which has been nice. It's also nice being one of the only 2 men on the board to kind of give that perspective, because oftentimes when we're reviewing, grant applications and determining if someone's worthy to receive it and it makes sense, and balancing that out, which has been great. Prior to that, I'd spent years working on the community group in my community in PB for all the development projects. So it's kind of like a little bit of, I wanted to know what was going on, but also help influence what was happening in my community.
Sure.
And kind of wrangle the neighbors, they were all a lot of times NIMBYs, to be like, let's find a compromise.
Yeah.
Because they're going to do it. We can drag it on, but let's just see if we can get built what we want that'll fit. Yeah. As opposed to trying to just shoot down everything. So
right.
That was all
because development needs to happen.
Correct.
It's just going to be done, reasonably.
Correct.
With thought around things.
Yeah.
So that way you don't have the crazy developer doing crazy stuff that, we turn around later like, oh, versus doing nothing.
Yeah.
And just having eco world take over. There is a blend.
Of course. Yeah. And I, when I talk to people, I was like, it's because of years of people saying no that we've got this pent up demand now.
Yeah.
And that we've got this massive housing shortage.
Yeah.
So now the big thing of outrage in PB is they've proposed a 230-foot tall high rise on Turquoise in North PB, where there's a small carve out from the Coastal Commission because it is elevated over 100 feet from the sea level.
Yep.
But the community is like, this is crazy. It's going to block our view. It's going to be traffic. What about crime? And I'm like, I don't know if those things are going to be happening. Like, you don't get 200 people moving in and all of a sudden it's 200 cars at that moment. It's spread out over a day.
Sure. I mean, there's traffic studies that they do and third-party traffic studies.
Of course, yeah. That's now
they go through it all. And you're right. It's not like all moving at one time. So they time things out.
Of course, yeah. So, so I did that for prior years. And then now, my wife's like, hey, you've got kids, spend time with them. So now I volunteer with the school. I volunteer with their sports.
Are they all in the PB school system?
They're at High Tech Elementary in Claremont here.
Yeah.
And so,
and there's also a High Tech in Point Loma too. Right?
Correct. Yeah. There's a few of them now. I think there's a few of those chapters. And so it's elementary through high school. So they can be at the same school for all the way through graduation, which is incredible.
Okay.
So yeah, I've been getting involved there. My wife is involved at the school as well. It's nice to be there and be involved so the kids know and parents know that, hey, we're paying attention.
Sure.
And it makes an impact. It makes an impact when they allow that as well, because some schools don't allow that. They don't want the parents on site. And
which I disagree with.
I agree. I agree.
I mean, we need to have eyeballs on things and, make sure that our influence is there too.
Yep.
So they're not being told and taught certain things that maybe are out of alignment with core values.
Correct. Yeah, correct. Yeah. So fortunately, none of that's happened just yet. But it is nice because we're finding that they are influenceable.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there needs to be different viewpoints.
Of course.
I always say that you shouldn't have one way or the other, right? Because then you don't have this true sharing of viewpoints. Because everybody has a good opinion if you listen to it. And usually people's opinions and their viewpoints come from where they were either raised, brought up, started from. So there's a reason behind it. It's not like I just have this opinion because of X.
Of course.
It's usually because of something.
Of course.
That brings it through.
Yes, you've had this past experience. And that's why one of the things I teach my kids and just people in general is having a beginner's mindset. Right? You just because you think you know something, you don't know every angle of that. Or you don't know someone else's perspective or their variation. So be humble enough to learn.
Yeah.
and see if it's something different than you know. And if you have a different viewpoint, then great. You can.
Would you agree? And I think this is true. I believe if you sat down with, call it 75% of the U.S. population, that most people are more centered, right?
Yeah.
Where maybe they're, in certain aspects, they're more conservative, in certain aspects more liberal, but you could probably have a conversation and come to a meeting of the minds.
For sure.
And then you have the outliers, right? And they tend to have the loudest voices that are the ones on TV spouting XYZ.
Yep.
But they're not the majority. I do believe the majority, whether you are left or right or whatever it may be, probably share a lot of similar, or at least can come to an agreement, generally speaking, on things.
I think so. I think if you went down the list of things that people have in common, it's way longer than the things they don't.
Yeah.
And I think the things that people don't have in common a lot of times are imagined. Right? Oh, it's XYZ peoples that are damaging our country. I'm like, do you know any of these people? Have you met them? Have you interacted with them?
I just heard it on the news.
Exactly.
Right?
So got it. So no one no immigrants have murdered your family members.
Right.
Got it. So so has it happened? Potentially, but
yeah,
it's not like it's a daily neighborhood
right,
thing.
It's not widespread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but yeah, does everyone love their mom? Yes.
Yeah.
Do you like having a nice meal? Yes. Do you like having fun?
Do you want your family to grow up and have a nice opportunities in life?
Correct.
Sure.
Yeah.
So there's universals.
Absolutely. So I think most people would agree on that kind of stuff. Now it's like the minutia and, the loud voices that can be distracting. But I think most people are, if you spend a few minutes with someone, you can find more things in common than not.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So I always chuckle at folks, and I even will get on my mom sometimes who, they're more old school. And I'm like, Mom, you need to have a little bit more of an open mind than that.
Yeah.
I mean, you have your opinions, great, but at least be open to the concepts.
Right. Well, especially if you have an experience of something, that can widen your understanding of it, then great. So
Yep.
I was sharing a story last night about how I've done a ride along with the police because East Village is known as the highest crime area in San Diego, and right behind that, number 2 is Pacific Beach.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, per capita.
Okay.
And so I was like, well, let me see what this crime is about. But, so after spending a night with the police, it's mostly people coming in from out of town that are drunk and late at night and want to get in fights because someone bumped into someone.
Right.
So it's a lot of that,
Yep.
and actually a fair amount of domestic violence as well.
Interesting. So PB and where else you said?
East Village.
East Village downtown, which makes sense.
Because of the
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And so, but in my neighborhood, 1 block away from Garnett, it's pretty quiet, and we don't have any issues. And when I talk to my neighbors that have been there for 30 plus years, they're like, nothing really happens.
Right.
On Garnett, yeah, you might get stabbed at 11:30 at night, but
it depends on what time of year. I mean,
of course,
obviously summertime, you got all the college kids and everybody's out, and it's the way that it works. And then this time of year, it'll simmer down a bit. So
yeah, a little bit quieter. Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised because it's still football, and so we've seen some wild things.
Sunday football.
Yeah, 6-7 p.m. There's some drunk people doing some dumb things.
Interesting. But, how long you been married?
11 years now.
How did you and your wife meet?
Yeah, she lived a block away from me in PB, but we actually met on Match.com.
Okay.
Yeah,
you're an onliner. I mean, I feel like everybody these days, not everybody, but I shouldn't speak like that, but more often than not, because of the way the world's working, you tend to see a lot more of that now.
Even at that time, this was 13 years ago when we first started dating, it was kind of like, I don't need this. I meet people. I've been dating people, but
right.
And I'm glad that friends of mine persuaded me to do it because, incredibly, she was like my second date online.
Okay.
Ever. And just, that was it. That was second date, and then we married, and that was a wrap.
How long did you guys date?
About 1.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then you got engaged, and then what year did you guys get married?
2013.
2013.
Yeah.
So you're 11 years in.
Is that 2013? Yeah, 2013.
Yeah. Any advice for people that, marriages have ebbs and flows, ups and downs. Any advice to how to work through difficult times with your spouse?
I think the difficult times start when you start having kids.
Sure. A lot of pressure.
Yeah. And the mom has to do a lot of work, especially when it's a newborn and they're breastfeeding and stuff like that. So the one thing that I learned was that you cannot do enough around the house and never complain about it.
Yep.
Like, I already did the dishes today. I'm like, well, we got to do them again. So like, or I did the laundry, so to always be able to help more because there's no downtime.
Sure.
There's very little downtime, so.
And the newborns are tough, man. It's a tough time. It's strenuous.
And I think that's important. And then also now at this age, as I'm getting involved with more nonprofits or other organizations that I spend a lot of time with, making sure that she's got coverage and she's not left to be single mom every night of the week because I'm out at a dinner or an event and stuff like that. Because the other nonprofit I work with is Entrepreneurs Organization, and that's it's not helping unfortunate people, but it's helping other entrepreneurs grow from our experiences, which is a nice value add because we employ a lot of people. And so I think that's a key thing that I work on with her is as I'm spending time with these organizations that she knows that she can have nights out.
Sure.
Or if I need to take a weekend trip, well, guess what? You can take one too.
Yeah.
Or I got, a babysitter for us, so we can do that. Now, another thing that that's been helpful on the marriage side is a tip that I heard, which is never stop dating your wife.
Yeah.
So every week we get a babysitter and we go out at least once or twice a week.
Yeah. Well, because they say, and I think it's very, very true, that you have to have a minimum of 90 minutes of each. 90 minutes of emotional connection, intimacy, whether it's sitting down talking and like having that 90 minutes, whether it's all at one time or spread out per week, minimum. And then 90 minutes of like physical connection with your spouse, right?
Yeah.
And so whether that's going out date night and doing that stuff, but 100%, because it's very easy to get in the rut.
For sure.
Right. And allow that rut of life and kids and motion and stuff to just take over. And then you kind of set the relationship by the side.
Yeah. Because they got with you the first time.
And your kids watch it.
For sure. They see that. Yeah.
Right. And then.
Well, you want them to see that we're still care for each other, love each other, and we're having fun with each other.
Right.
And that's just the reason why your spouse chose you anyways, right? Because hopefully you're fun.
Yeah. And
if you forget to do that, then you're like, well, what am I, this is just my partner now instead of my, also my best friend.
And you hear the saying too, but then I heard therapists and some other people say, no, it's actually the opposite. And here's why. We had to put the kids first. Actually, it's the opposite. You put the relationship first in terms of the hierarchy in the family.
Yeah.
But it's very easy sometimes for the mother and the mom to go mom and go, take care of the nest.
Yeah.
And then lose sight maybe of the husband sometimes.
Yep.
But the relationship between a husband and a wife is the paramount hierarchy.
That makes sense.
Because if that's strong and successful and the kids can see that, then it filters itself all the way down.
For sure.
But if it's not strong, and then all of a sudden now there's stress between the spouse, the kids are going to see that. And then it's going to come right out in the way you treat each other, in how successful the relationship is. And then, of course, maybe that falls apart. And so it's super interesting to see how that, and making sure maybe that your spouse is on that same mindset.
Yeah.
They realize, hey, no, we need to put our relationship first. And by doing that, we actually do put the kids first.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And it's good to be able to figure that out because it's a lot of strain when kids need 24-hour attention.
Sure, especially in the new age. I mean, when their first 2 years of their life, it's hands on deck, baby.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're right in the trenches.
So now we have that kind of lifestyle, and now it's balanced out, and everyone seems pretty happy. The kids are pretty good, and wife's good.
Love it. What's the next steps for you? I mean, any big aspirations, any BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a construction company, our goal is to build 1,000 homes by 2033.
Okay. In San Diego?
Yeah, in San Diego. That includes multi-units too, because now we're starting to do 8, 10, 12, 20-unit projects as well, so that counts. So that's for the construction company. I think for the development company, I do want to put some buildings up, and so that's nice. So I've got at least 3 that are in the works, and I just
in the design or in the development phases.
Yeah, so all in design phases now at this point, and then was able to.
Do you acquire them, or do you wait to acquire them until after the development? You have a workout with the current ownership.
It varies, yeah. So sometimes I've negotiated deals where it's a long escrow or a lease option.
Yep.
And I've got it recorded, so I know I'm going to get the deal.
Sure.
And then I'll entitle it, and then I don't have to have the holding costs of...
Yeah, because that's usually the challenge, right? Especially in California. And I was listening to a builder guy the other day, which made a great point. I was like, oh, that's a really good point. He said, I hear so many people say California is a horrible place to invest in. And here's the reason why that's true and not true at the same time. It's true because it's a pain in the ass to get things through the process. But he says the reason why it's also amazing is because it's a pain in the ass to get things through the process.
Yeah.
Because it does create this supply constraint.
Correct.
Right? Which then keeps pricing elevated and allow things to stay up, which then promotes more development. So it is constrained because it is the process and the red tape and the chaos and the time and the energy. But if you can get through that and you're willing to weather through that, your pricing is always up because of the supply constraint.
Correct.
Do you agree with that?
I agree. I think that, when we put these models together in our performance for what this project's going to look like and how much it's going to make 3 or 4 years from now, we're using today's numbers and a haircut versus the future numbers, which could be 10, 20, 30% higher. Right. And so I think that builds in a little bit of safety cushion as well. And granted, the construction costs.
And you're saying you're using today's numbers plus a haircut to take into account for that red tape.
We're just trying to do conservative numbers. So, if other people have their studios at 2,400 and we put ours at 21.
Gotcha.
Today, for future value, and it still pencils out.
Okay.
Cool. Now
you'll stress test it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what helps. But it is a lot of times on the program and on the acquisition that you
100%
determine if you can make the profit.
Yeah, I mean, in like you said, building in, knowing your construction costs and/or renovation costs.
Yep.
And then you're backing into your land or building acquisition.
Correct. Yeah.
Because that's where you make or break your deal.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So you want to see the 100 deals so you can pick the one that looks the juiciest.
Yeah.
And so I'm always,
how would you say you find the best deals? I mean, I know you said you go direct to seller or through agents that can bring some pre-market deals to you because of relationships. But you're just building that database.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, one of the ways that I'm doing that is through networking events that I'm hosting.
Yep.
We'll have different speakers on different topics at my office and get 50 to 100 people through.
Okay.
And so that just kind of creates my relationship capital as someone that knows how to.
Where's your office currently?
On Morena Boulevard in Claremont.
Okay.
Bayho, basically.
Yep.
So now 6 months ago, we started adding a new project called Deal or No Deal, where people come in and we'll get like 20, 30 people show up and we'll have them pitch projects to me, right? Whether it's a flip.
It's like a Shark Tank of deals, baby.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
I love that.
And so, yeah.
I got to come check one of those out.
It is a lot of fun because, even seasoned investors and developers and flippers will come and then we'll crowdsource the ideas, right? Because I'm not the guy that's up there that knows everything.
Sure.
So I'll be like, oh, there's an architect in the room. Let's see what you think. Here's what I think is, FAR and development potential. He's like, yeah, it's pretty good, here's in terms of highest and best feasibility.
Interesting.
But then I'll pull up the spreadsheets and run the numbers on the spot too.
Yeah, that's wild.
And so people kind of get that extra.
It's probably an incredible learning experience for people.
It is, yeah. People are like, it's great because everyone's got notes and they're like writing notes here.
I mean, it's real-time feedback.
Yes, correct.
Right? So you're getting to see the deal, get the feedback, hear the sources, look at some of the numbers, and like get real-time.
For sure. And so I'm giving all the secret sauce.
Yeah.
So I'm not holding anything back, and people want the spreadsheets I use. Here you go. I'll email it to you.
Well, and here's the thing too. I learned this from some other people in education spaces is you can tell everybody and literally give it away on a silver platter. It's not the information that's valuable.
Yeah.
It's what do you do with it?
Correct.
Because most people, you could give them everything, but they just don't know how to implement.
Correct.
So it's the implementation is where the value's at, right? It's how do you actually take this and apply it and execute?
Yeah.
Because that's the value.
Yeah, and then the underwriting is key too. And I think that being able to underwrite a deal makes it so other people can understand it.
Sure.
And
use numbers that would probably work.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah.
So the flip spreadsheets are, pretty basic and everyone's got one of those, which is nice. Now I'm starting to get better spreadsheets that'll say, okay, we're doing an ADU development. What's that look like? Or we're doing a multifamily development. What's that look like? And now we've got numbers that investors can read and say, okay, I like this project. Can I get in with you?
Yeah.
And so I think being able to do that is key. And I think a lot of people learn that in those meetings because just general numbers in that back of an envelope are kind of...
It's good for a start.
It's a good start to find out if it works, and then you got to drill.
But you got to get nitty gritty, right? Because there's a lot of nuance.
Correct.
That comes into that.
And so, so that's been a good strategy because now that's bringing in deals too. And guess what? They'll want to work with me because I was able to share them how to.
You're building trust.
Correct.
Connection and trust.
Yeah. Trying to be a thought leader on that, and then just know that people can share that with me, and then if there's a deal to be had,
Do you joint venture? Do you partner? Or is it all you? How do you like to do your deals?
Yeah, I'll chop it up depending on who wants to bring what.
Okay.
So I was having this conversation. So actually, 3 of the deals that I like right now that I'm working on were brought out by agents on my team.
Okay.
Or that quickly joined my team because they're like, my regular broker won't do these things.
Right. They won't be creative.
Yeah. And so it depends on how it is. So, for example, one of my agents I'm doing that 33 unit with, Victor in Vista. And so we have another development group that wants to buy in and JV with us.
Okay.
So we're trying to figure out how to chop it out. He's like, hey, I've got these other investors from out of country that want to...
So they can bring in capital.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I always say, you have the capital side, which is critical.
Yeah.
Then you have, who's signing on the loans for the debt?
Right.
And then, who's going to bring operational prowess?
Correct.
To be able to entitle it and then operate and run it and get it through. And, great. And then now you got to build the thing.
Yep.
And then maybe post-building, you got to operate.
Yep.
Presuming you're going to do that versus sell.
Yep.
So there's different avenues that people bring.
Correct. Yeah, that's what I was telling him. He's like, they want to bring the money. I was like, well, can they help us get the loan? Because I don't know if I'll qualify for a $20 million loan.
Yeah, maybe you need a KPI, key principal.
Right.
With balance sheet, and you guys co-sign.
Yeah. And I was like, will they help build it? Because we don't build multifamily it's that scale, with elevators and rooftops and stuff like that. And he's like, well, no. I was like, well, then they sound like there'll be limited partner investors, not general partner investors, right? Versus the developers that I'm talking to that do build it, can get the loans, have the access to the cash in the bank.
Sure. Yeah, it can bring some operational prowess.
Correct.
Yeah, and some background. And
so I was like, those are good general partners.
Yeah, capital's one piece of the puzzle.
Correct.
Right, an important one. But yeah, if they're, like you said, if they're raising capital, they maybe get paid a fee for the capital raise plus an LP.
Yep.
And then, unless they're bringing some other operational side to it, they'd get a kick in the GP side.
Correct.
And then even if they are in the GP side, how much voting rights do they have?
Yeah.
Because maybe they can get a kick of the GP, but they don't really have any voting rights.
Yeah.
They're kind of a silent GP.
Right.
So there's just different ways to skin the cat.
Yeah. So it varies. So on each deal, it does vary depending on who's involved and at what level.
Yeah.
And then it's I'm now checking with other people before I make these deals because I'm like,
yeah, what would you do? How would you split it up?
Of course, yeah.
How a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, and I think that's important. My first 30 flips were with the partner that had done 200. Yeah. So I learned, so I didn't make major mistakes. And so I'm thinking about that the same way that I'm doing these development projects is let me partner with people that have done a bunch.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of ways to screw up and lose millions of dollars.
Yeah. And you're dealing with more zeros, baby.
Correct. Yeah. So more zeros to win.
And you're signing on loans that are typically recourse for construction purposes.
Yep.
And then they go non-recourse later. But
and so that's how I've been doing it. So it varies. Some deals I've got 20%, some deals I've got 80%.
Yeah.
And everything in between.
I love it. Well, yeah, I got to come take a look at this deal or no deal. How often do you do them?
Once a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
When's your next one? And obviously December, or are you going to do it in January?
Yeah, December. It's like the third Tuesday of the month or something like that. I have to take a look at the calendar.
Yeah, I need to...
We just do it midday, and then we have like a hard money lender provide lunch.
Okay.
And so there's some food. We put it up on the big screen.
No, I think that'd be an incredible learning experience. Just come check it out.
It's fun. It is fun. And people seem to enjoy it, and they keep coming back. And
so deal or no deal at the office. Where are you guys located at specifically in the Moreno? And then how can people best find you online? I'm guessing Instagram or other?
Yeah, Instagram is fine. I'm easy to find. There's only one Henish Pulickal, fortunately. But yeah, Cal Home Co. is my website. That's easy to find. And then my office is at 4250 Moreno, which is pretty close to the cost.
So Cal Home Co., is that for your brokerage as well or different companies?
Yeah, I have a DBA for the brokerage as like my real estate team because I'm now with Realty of America. It's a new brokerage that opened up. And so I have a DBA for Cal Home Co. for the real estate under, brokered by Realty of America. Then I have a separate S Corp for my construction, which is Cal Home Co. Construction. And so that runs, and I'm 50% owner of that with a partner. And then we have 4 PMs, and we're building a dozen plus projects at a time.
Love it. So would you consider the construction company and the development company the same company?
Or it's not. Yeah, my development company is separate. It's another company called Spherical.
Is that an LLC or an S Corp?
It's an LLC right now, and then we'd have sub-LLCs underneath it.
Gotcha.
For each project.
Yep.
So that changes, sometimes you get a new company and a new project, and you have a new name for it.
Right.
So I haven't nailed that.
That is one of the challenges is, an SPE, single, property entity for each deal.
Correct.
Which it is what it is. And then especially in California, because of the statute, you got to hold that thing for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Pre and post construction, so for liability. So,
Yeah.
Do you get wrap insurance on your stuff or not? I guess if you're doing for rent, you probably don't need to.
I don't know if I've gotten that far in yet.
Yeah.
No.
Because if you're ever going to do which is why the for sale condo stuff is harder to do.
Correct. No one's doing that now.
Yeah, because of the insurance problems.
Correct.
I mean, trying to get insurance, the liability insurance, you're going to get sued. It's depending on the size of the project, but let's presume it's over 15 units. It's not when. I'm sorry, it's not if, it's when. And usually it's around year 8 or 9 at the end of the tail.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
Because those are failing.
Well, yeah, no, the attorneys start knocking doors.
Yeah.
Because the paycheck's coming. Mm-hmm. So they can go knock doors, file a lawsuit amongst the HOA, and go sue the developers, get the wrap insurance, because they'll check to see if they have wrap insurance. And if they do, they just sue the insurance, and then they do settlement. That's a whole, once again, it's an F show of a money turn. And so it's an indoor-outdoor cycle.
I've heard from the architects that I've been talking to that no one is building condos to sell.
Right now. What they will do, and here's the smart move, is they'll build it as apartments.
And then convert it.
Put the map on it during the course of construction, wait 10 years to get past the tail.
And then consider selling.
And then they'll do a condo conversion, which is already not really a conversion at that point because it's already got the map on it.
Yeah.
And you sell them.
Yep.
And then you get past the 10-year statute.
Exactly. So that's what I've heard, and that's what we'll consider for some of our projects. Yeah. But they're all being built as apartments.
Yeah, because everybody's scared to death of the insurance cost, and it's just you're going to get sued.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of...
So that further exacerbates the housing crisis because no one can buy these things.
I know.
And condos were the original affordable housing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but the only guys building those now are the big dudes, the downtown guys.
Yeah.
Right? The Bosas.
Are they still doing those? I don't
think
they're doing them
Bosas as their last project that I'm aware of that they finished. But, it's a different ballgame. And those pockets are different and the whole structure is different. So they'll do them.
Well, yeah, they're doing super luxury. Super
it's a different ballgame. But you don't see your traditional condo project going up where it's a $300,000, $400,000 condo.
No.
So it's just that the liability is too great.
I think most of the buildings that are downtown that were built in the last 20 years are in lawsuits.
All of them.
Yeah.
Every single one. I mean, they every single one. Like they just go through their process.
Wow.
It's usually around year 8 or 9. The attorneys come knocking and they talk to the HOA boards. And they say, well, maybe you have some water issues over here. And they throw a hose on it. And okay, let's sue the developers. And then let's get the wrap insurance.
Wow.
And then they start the process. But what they don't educate the HOA on is, hey, during the course of the lawsuit, your property value is going to go through the floor because you can't sell it.
You can't sell this thing.
They don't tell them that. So then they sit there for 4 or 5 years under lawsuit. Nobody can sell. So anyhow, it's a whole show.
Yeah, I'm learning that quickly. So yeah, we haven't built anything to sell like that.
Okay.
All the stuff we're building are just mostly
apartment for rent stuff. And interesting. Yep. Any advice for young developers? It's funny because I'm a multifamily guy.
Yeah.
And but we constructed single family homes and some small development stuff, and we flipped some houses. But I'm looking to get more back into the flipping business in San Diego again because I do like that shorter turn time. I mean, the benefit of multifamily is it's bigger numbers, bigger zeros.
For sure.
The challenge with it as well is it's capital intensive.
And it's long term.
It's long term, and the capital has to sit.
Yeah.
The greatest method is to take the shorter term, whether it's a flip or a quicker development, whatever it is, or maybe even taking a 10-unit apartment building, flipping it, and taking that short-term money, making the profits, and then moving it into long-term projects.
Yeah.
And so, between, San Diego, even a Las Vegas or a Phoenix, like those markets are still moving well enough. But it's inventory, right? It's finding the inventory.
Yeah, no one wants to sell, and it's hard. But yeah, if you can get the flips and get them at the right value, that's important. I think if you're new in this business, I think it's important to work with people that are experienced.
100%.
And start there.
Yeah.
Because it's too much of a learning curve to figure it out on your own.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely want to be with somebody who's done some flips, that has the team, specifically on the construction side.
Correct.
Where you can get burned very quickly and very easily.
Correct.
And you think your budgets are X, and then you start doing some stuff and it's X plus.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was, one of the key tenets of our construction company, because after we had done flips for all these years before we started it, we knew that we didn't like change orders.
Yep.
Even though that's where a lot of construction companies
make their money, baby.
Yeah. But we've done an analysis repeatedly at our pipeline. We have less than 0.2% change orders on our overall.
Yeah, so your budgeting's good.
Our budgeting's right on, and it's usually because clients want an upgrade that they'll pay more. Oh, we want to get nicer windows. We want to get nicer appliances.
Yep.
And so then they'll pay more, but it's not a change order like, oops, we didn't
Yeah, you forgot this wall.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So,
Right.
Gotcha.
So I think that's important. And yeah, that's where the experience and the diligence helps of doing a lot of these
Yep.
and not missing it.
Yeah.
Right. And not missing those things that can get expensive. And so partnering with the right people helps out. Right. And so I think that's the key thing. Find someone that is doing what you want and then work with them.
Yeah. 100%.
If you want to go on your own after that, then, you know,
yeah. I mean, because I've always believed, even the people that come in and work with us, what is your dream? Where are you trying to go? Great. You come in, maybe you do want to go off on your own, maybe you don't. Just depends on the situation, but always helping people grow.
Yep, absolutely.
But if you have a scarcity mindset of, I'm just going to hold everything in, I'm not going to share the knowledge.
Correct.
That's not the abundance, because the abundant mindset says, hey, listen, there's plenty to go around.
Absolutely.
And, if you just help people give back, the law of reciprocity pays itself forward.
I agree. That's why when we do those events, I'm like, here's the exact websites I'm using.
Yep.
To figure out your zoning.
Yep.
Or the FAR.
Do you like Scout Red? Isn't that a good one? Your thing's falling out there.
I think it's good as a tool, but I double check it.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a lead gen for Architects Local.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So that's how it was all. Yeah. So is that how the guy designed it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's
I know you can click on the buttons and
do
all
so
that.
It goes to them, Aaron Borgia and Steve Wadra, and so I know these guys, and so they get leads.
I mean, it was a brilliant concept.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. It makes sense and it makes it readable. And it's a good start. But then you can use things like Zap in San Diego, which is very useful. And there's other websites that can share what the development potential is, whether it's complete communities, whether you can do unlimited ADUs. If you want to do an addition to your property, how much more square footage can you add?
Yep.
And it's nice to be able to do that and save a couple $1,000s of having to pay an architect to do.
Sure. Yeah, for the upfront kind of feasibility.
Correct.
Side of it.
And so I do share all that because knowledge is power and let people have it.
Yeah. Because once again, it's not the info. It's how you implement.
Of course.
What are you going to do with it?
Yeah. And so it is. And
that's where the value comes in, because that's the expertise. It's the experience. It's the time that people will pay for.
Yep.
Yeah,
and I'm happy to share it. And I think most people, especially when you get to the bigger levels, especially when I'm dealing with more multifamily developers, I'm noticing they have a lot more of the abundance mindset than the lower level people that are
or they're trying to herd it all. I'm like, guys, that's just help.
Yeah,
right.
Sure,
because it'll pay itself forward. Trust me, it always does.
Yes,
you don't have to worry about the scarcity. Just abundance, give it out. Money's abundant. Everything's abundant.
Help the most people, and then the money will come knocking your door down. So that's I've heard it that way too. It's like if you just do the right thing, you help the most people, then you'll make your living.
That's right.
And I think that's an easy way to think of it. And we're here to help people with their housing issues.
Yeah, because we got it in California and San Diego. It's not going anywhere.
It's not solving. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
people want to live here. So, against what the news says, if everyone's leaving.
Well, what's funny, and I do tell people this. I said the only place I would probably invest in California at this point would be San Diego. It is super unique.
Yeah.
The diversity of the economy is extremely unique.
Yep.
With the different areas of the biotech, the pharmaceutical,
defense industry.
Defense industry comes in two forms, not just the actual military, right, the Navy, but all the subcontractors, third-party companies, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, Spawar, all these big contracting companies, all these guys are here.
Yep.
Heck, my business partner, all these guys are here.
All the universities.
All the university systems, and then you have the life sciences. I mean, it's so diverse now.
And a lot of the tech companies are moving down. We just got Apple.
And Google.
We just got Amazon, right? And we're getting
all the fulfillment centers.
Yeah. So they're all moving down because San Francisco's got less appealing.
Yeah. Well, what happened during COVID, I mean, this is a perfect example. So one of our friends who's an investor, one of our deals, he and his wife both worked for Walmart.com, like the tech side of Walmart, and was up in the Bay Area. And during COVID, the companies came, you can throw that around. Companies came and they said, okay, we're not going to bring everybody back to the office. We're only going to bring back half.
Yeah.
So the other half of you, right, you only need to, you can live anywhere you want, but it has to be in California, right? And you will get paid the same as you're here, and you'll get the same benefits.
Yeah, remote worker.
So what do you think they're going to do?
Yeah,
they're like,
the best spot you can live.
Right, I'm going to San Diego.
Of course.
So that's why everybody flocked into San Diego, and the prices went up because you had all the tech guys who were paying $4 million up there can pay $2 million down here, and they thought it was a bargain.
Correct.
And that's why you saw what happened, and it's still going on.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I remember during COVID, I had people move into a rental from New York. They're like, oh, we get to work from home, so we're picking San Diego.
Yeah, why would you not?
Yeah, it makes sense.
And it's a fraction of the price still.
And you get to live by the beach.
Deal. Right.
Yeah.
You know, and I can still fly home and do these things, but I get to live in SoCal and get the same benefits.
Yeah, it is pretty nice here, and not growing up here and traveling, I'm always happy to be like, I live in San Diego.
Yeah, I get to go home. Yeah.
Walk to the beach 3 blocks away. It's great.
All day long. Yeah. I love it. Well, I appreciate your time coming in.
Absolutely.
This was amazing. I'm going to have to come check out your office, number one, but deal or no deal. I'm super stoked about this.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It was great to catch up and spend some time on the podcast here with you.
So, yeah, if anybody wants to learn more, go on. What's your hashtag on Instagram?
H. Pulickal, so my first initial last name.
Okay. Beautiful.
But you could type in Henish and it should pop up pretty quickly.
Okay. If anybody needs help in San Diego or anywhere else, reach out to them, and let's go do a deal or no deal.
Awesome.
So take care. Bye, everybody.